Hey guys, today you are going to be listening to me go through this slideshow with you. It is on Julius Caesar and the fall of the Republic. It is very important that you pay attention and listen to this recording because you are going to do a worksheet and you're going to have to fill it in. You'll be getting some of the information from me through this. As well as a few other things. So it is very important that you please listen carefully because I am going to grade the worksheet that you are filling out at the end of all this. I will also give you this slideshow without me talking because you'll need to click on a couple of links here and there to be able to do your worksheet at the end. All right, so let's start with Julius Caesar. Here's a picture of him. And actually, we're going to do a little bit about the Republic first. So, as a reminder, dictators. We just went over what dictators were in ancient Rome. They were originally men who were given absolute power, and they took over just temporarily only in times of emergencies. So we had just talked about Cincinnatus and how he was a farmer who helped win a battle, but then he turned the power back over to the Republican Senate. So he relinquished his power after he won the battle. Think about it. He probably could have had a lot more power and he could have held on to it, but he knew that wasn't his job. His job as a dictator was to win the battle, and then he knew to go back home to his farm. So that's what dictators were at the very beginning. Also keeping in mind what a republic was. It's when people elected their leaders. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. Okay, there are problems arising in Rome, and they are not good right now. The gap between the rich and poor was getting bigger and bigger. The reason is that the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. What was happening here, guys, is that small farms were now being bought up by the wealthy people. So if a plebeian owned a farm, the wealthy people were buying them up, but then they were using slaves to farm that land, which put these people out of jobs, and it wouldn't allow them the chance to buy their farms back. So this was a huge problem. People started fighting for the reforms and the changes. They wanted change. They didn't want this to be happening still. But every time someone tried to do that, they were killed for trying. So again, the power was sort of in the hands of those patricians. The army is going to enter politics. Here's what I mean by this, guys. Soldiers are starting to get pretty smart. We're going to get generals, like a General Sulla is his name, the first guy to do this. He is going to pay his soldiers with money and land. No longer do they have to be just volunteers. He's going to start paying them, which is really smart, guys, because think about it. If these soldiers are being paid, they're probably going to work harder, because if they don't, then they're not going to get paid. So as soon as they stop working hard, then they stop getting paid. The harder they work, the more they get paid. So now their loyalty changes. Suddenly, their loyalty goes to their generals. And so the government and the political leaders are starting to lose a little bit of their power, and the generals are gaining that power. So the generals start to gain more power by paying their soldiers. All right. So here's where we're going to talk a little bit more about, this is where we're going to talk about Julius Caesar and the end of the Republic. What you are going to have to do when all of this is done before you do the worksheet at the end. You will have to go back to the slideshow, not the one that I am talking on, but the regular slideshow, and you'll have to go to this and click this link, because you will need to learn about his government experiences. And by doing that, when you click on this link, and I'll just click to show you guys, it's going to pull you to here, and you are going to scroll down and read about his early career in his consul in general, as consul in general. And this will help you fill in the worksheet. You're not going to write exactly what it says, but you're going to read it and get some ideas of what his government experience was like. Okay, so just remember that you'll have to go back to that link later. All right, let's talk about Julius Caesar. So Now that generals have power, there are going to be 3 generals who are going to take over Rome. They are Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. They actually refer to themselves as the first triumvirate, but you might hear about that later on. Unfortunately, Crassus is killed in a battle. So now that first triumvirate, that group of 3, is gone. So now it's just Caesar and Pompey. Caesar is a very good general. He's a good soldier. So he is out fighting a battle trying to conquer Gaul. Remember, Gaul is present-day France. Pompey is left in Rome to rule alone. So he's going to be in Rome ruling. The problem is that Caesar is very well liked by the plebeians. They like him. And the reason is because he does a lot for them, guys. He treats them well. He understands that there's a big gap between the rich and the poor, and he's trying to close that gap a little bit. You know how I always say, guys, know your audience. He knows his audience. He knows that there's more plebs than there are patricians. So he's smart to keep the plebs happy. And so they're going to support him. So he's well liked by the plebs. The Senate, especially Pompey, become jealous of this. And so they're going to order Caesar to leave his army in Gaul and return to Rome without his army. They want him to come back without his army. I'm guessing you can think of why. They don't want him to have any strength, right? They don't want him to have any power. So they're going to tell him to come back without his army. Caesar is no dummy, guys. He knows this is a bad idea. So he doesn't. He refuses. And he does what we call, he crosses the Rubicon. The Rubicon, guys, is a river in northern Italy. He's going to cross that river with his army. He's going to return to Rome. And he knows when he does this, he is starting a civil war. Just as a reminder, a civil war, guys, is when people in your own country are fighting one another. So his own country is they're fighting. He's fighting his own country. So he knows by leaving Gaul with his army and coming back to Rome with his army, he's starting a civil war. Caesar ends up defeating Pompey. And once he defeats Pompey, he actually is then declared dictator for life. So think about this, guys. If we go back to the word dictator, a dictator is someone who rules in times just temporarily, in times of need, and then turns his power back over. Well, he's now being declared dictator for life. So absolute power for his life. And so this ends the republic. When he is declared dictator for life after winning the Civil War, the republic is over. No more electing leaders in. All right. Now, here are some of his reforms, changes. He makes a lot of new reforms and changes and becomes even more popular among the common people. He's going to grant citizenship to conquered people. So when people are conquered, he allows them to be Roman citizens, giving them the rights to vote, which again is smart. He's going to start new colonies. So as he conquers land, he starts new colonies. And what he does is he gives land to those without jobs. So the poor people that didn't have jobs, he gives them land so that they can at least have a chance. He orders large farm owners to use less slaves and instead give jobs back to those that needed them. So he's basically doing, when I talked about those problems earlier and the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, Julius Caesar's trying to close that gap, guys, between the rich and the poor. And he's saying to the rich people, listen, you have enough. Give some of those farms back to those that don't. Stop using the slaves, hire people, pay them, and give jobs back to those that need them. And again, so he's keeping the poorer people happy. And lastly, he creates a new calendar with 12 months, 365 days, and a leap year. This should sound familiar, guys. His calendar is called the Julian calendar. It's going to be used throughout Europe all the way until 1582. So it was used for a very long time. We actually use what's called the Gregorian calendar, and it's only slightly different. It's like off by a few hours. I forget exactly, but it's super close to it. So we can say this is another one of his contributions because we use something very similar. All right. Now that you know a little bit about Caesar, I would like you to think of some words that you would use to describe him. You should think about words with a list, come up with a list of personal characteristics for him. If you were giving me adjectives to describe him, what are some of the words that you would use? So I want you to think about it. You can pause this if you want and then create your own list. So come up with a list of personal characteristics. How would you describe him? Go back and look or rewind a little bit and see all of the things that I just told you he did and what he is known to do. How would you describe this person? And then this list that you make is going to help you with your worksheet at the end. I also want you to think about the next question I have for you. Do you think the other members of the Senate like him as much as the common people? Why or why not? I'm guessing that you probably can imagine that they don't like him as much as the common people, right? Because he is dictator for life. So perhaps they're upset that he has more power than them. Remember, the Republic is supposed to elect their leaders. He wasn't elected. He was just given the title dictator for life. So I imagine they're jealous and not happy with him. So let's talk about his death, the death of Caesar. While the common people supported Caesar, those in power did not. They had this jealousy and fear that he was becoming too powerful and was becoming a king, meaning an only ruler. The Senate was afraid that he would never really share his power with them. And so they wanted their power and they wanted the Republic to be restored. They wanted the Republic back. They wanted to elect leaders again. And the story goes that supposedly Caesar visited a fortune teller, and the fortune teller warned him, beware the Ides of March. The Ides of March mean the middle days of a month. So the Ides are the middle days of the month. And strangely enough, on the 15th of March, there's usually 30 or 31 days in a month. So the 15th would be midway through. At 44 BCE, so on the 15th of March, 44 BCE, Caesar is stabbed to death in the Senate building by his own Senate. So the people that were supposed to be part of his government turned on him and stabbed him several times. And this is actually a famous painting of this. Maybe remind you a little bit of the Socrates one we did. But this is a painting of Caesar getting stabbed. So all of his Senate members, or many of his Senate members, going after him and stabbing him. And so Caesar's death led to another civil war. People are mad about this, very angry. So the country is in another war against one another. And by 27 BCE, so about 25 years later or so, Octavian, who is Caesar's heir and great nephew, meaning he's the one who technically should be taking over, and he's also Caesar's great nephew, he will end up taking over. He's going to restore the Senate, so he's going to bring the Senate back, but he's going to give them limited power. And he goes as far to name himself emperor, which means he's the very first emperor ever. He names himself emperor, and he takes the title Augustus, which means majestic one. So this is our first emperor ever, and it's Octavian, but he's going to change his name to Augustus. So when you hear Octavian and you hear Augustus, it's usually the same person, guys. And the reason he takes this name is because it means majestic one. And just a little to see over here, the coin of Octavian with the crocodile commemorates, meaning it is a reminder of his victory over Egypt, because he does win at a battle of Actium. He beats out another Roman and Cleopatra, actually. So, all right, your tasks now. You are going to complete a 7-minute ed puzzle on the life and times of Julius Caesar. This will give you a little bit more information on Julius Caesar. Then you are going to complete the wanted ad that is For those of you who are in school, it's on paper. For those of you who are not in school, it will be on a slide for you online. And it's going to be on Julius Caesar. You're going to use the information you learned from this slideshow and the Ed puzzle. And remember, you'll need, when you are filling in this wanted poster, you'll need to go back to slide 5 on the slideshow that I put in Classroom for you, and you will have to click on this link, which will give you some of his government experiences. Write it in your own words. Do not copy directly from this link. All right, good luck, guys, and I will go over this soon.